Hi everyone, I'm Sowthini Vijayakumar. I'm a PhD candidate in the University of Gulf. So my research topic is on long-term soil organic carbon gain potential of perennial biomass crops grown in Ontario. My research is mainly focusing on switchgrass and miscanthus. Those are the perennial grasses commonly grown in Ontario. So they have the ability to grow in low fertile soil or in the marginal lands. That way they require low nutrient inputs. They are mainly used as a raw material for bioproducts, and also they are used in the animal feed production or as the animal bedding. Nowadays they are used in the production of biofuel. In the case of benefits, they can provide both economic and environmental benefits. So when the land or the marginal land or agriculturally retired lands converted to biomass crops, they can give some sort of economic return to the farmers. And also environmental, they can improve soil quality by improving soil carbon. That way they are providing nutrients and increasing the nutrient availability in the soil. Having said that, these biomass crops can also have the ability to sequester carbon from the atmosphere to their biomass, and through that they are incorporating soil organic carbon or increasing soil organic carbon. So there are 10 million hectares of marginal lands available in Canada. So they are potentially available for biomass crop productions. So in the case of switchgrass and miscanthus production, which is exceeded to 1,200 hectares in 2019, and it is expected to increase up to 15,000 hectares in the near future, 5 to 10 years. So Ontario biomass growers not only focusing on the economic return, they are also decide to understand the impact of integrating biomass crops into their field towards increasing soil organic carbon and also reducing the greenhouse emission towards the climate change mitigation. When we are talking about soil organic carbon sequestration, so biomass crops are more into their sequestering carbon, more into the extensive root system, and also through the above and below ground inputs into the soil. This way they can improve soil organic carbon in their fields. And when we talk about soil organic carbon sequestration or the emission offset, which is influenced by mainly through the long-term capacity of the soil to store carbon, that means the soil type. So soil organic carbon is also influenced by the soil type. And also the rate of carbon addition, so the addition of the carbon inputs going into the soil, which also influence the soil organic carbon sequestration. And also the soil organic carbon sequestration can be influenced by the stability of the carbon sequestered in the soil. So main objectives of my research is to quantify and assess the soil organic carbon sequestration potential of perennial biomass crops compared to agricultural crops, and to assess maximum soil organic carbon sequestration potential of perennial biomass crops by comparing with the adjacent woodlot in the same region, and also to assess the climate change mitigation potential of these perennial biomass crops by comparing with the woodlot carbon, and also to assess the effect of nitrogen fertilizer application on soil organic carbon sequestration by these perennial biomass crops. And finally, I'm going to quantify and assess the soil health improvement by perennial biomass crops. So for this research, we sampled in 4 different land uses: agricultural soils, miscanthus and switchgrass, and the woodlot. Here the agricultural field is used as a baseline soil organic carbon to compare the biomass change in the carbon change in the biomass field, and whereas the adjacent woodlot, they are the undisturbed soils or the forest soils, so we can use as a maximum potential of carbon sequestered in that same region soil. So we use woodlot carbon as a reference soil for the maximum soil organic carbon sequestration. So that we sampled in 2008, 2009, and 2016. Those samples are used as a baseline soil organic carbon, and we again sampled in 2020. So we compared those year and this year to get the soil organic carbon change over the years. So for the soil organic carbon analysis, we got the samples and mixed well to get the homogeneous samples to represent the field, and they were going through this process to get the soil organic carbon analysis. We analyzed the carbon with the LECO CR412 carbon analyzer. So then we'll move into the results. On the left, figure 1 showing the soil organic carbon in the fertile soil, and on the right we can see the figure 2, that is the soil organic carbon change in non-fertile soil. If you see the fertile soil, I have compared between 2008 and 2020 soil organic carbon stock.
You can use the yardstick.
Oh yeah. And so this one. So this agriculture 2008 showing the baseline soil organic carbon in 2008. Then these land were converted to switchgrass miscanthus, and also part of the land is still the agriculture. So when we analyze the carbon, you can see the significant difference obtained in switchgrass and miscanthus field, but not in agriculture land. So that way, in 12 years, we gain more carbon in biomass crops than the agriculture field. In the case of non-fertile soil, we did see the soil organic carbon significantly increased in all agriculture biomass, switchgrass and miscanthus in 12 years. That may be the reason, because if you see the agriculture 29 carbon data in non-fertile soil, its starting carbon is around 59 megagrams per hectare. But in the case of fertile soil, if you see, it started with 75. So that might be the reason to get the significant difference between these two agricultural land. So having said that, if you see having the biomass crops in a long period of time, this biomass crop did increase the soil organic carbon with a long-term period. This result showing in four years in non-fertile soil, so sampled in 2016 and 2020. So the 4 years, within 4 years, we didn't see any significant difference in any of the land uses. But with this, there is no significant difference, but we did see some sort of increase in biomass crops. So this gives us an idea about having the long-term period of biomass crops will increase the soil organic carbon. So we have to keep the biomass crops to gain soil organic carbon, or significantly higher soil organic carbon than the agriculture field. We have to keep the biomass crops for a long period of time. So within 4 years, we couldn't see any difference. So these 3 graphs showing all the wood load carbon in the soil. As is expected, there is no change in the soil organic carbon within 12 years and also in 4 years. So that means there is the maximum carbon in the soil, so there is no gain in soil with the years. So since then, so we can use this as a reference maximum soil organic carbon in that region to compare the potential soil organic carbon gain by the perennial biomass crop in the region. So in this table, you can see the potential future gain by these perennial biomass crops by subtracting the woodlot carbon and the subtracting the perennial biomass crop. So the difference between these will give the future gain on the same field by the perennial biomass crops. So there is a potential of this much of carbon increase in the near future having these biomass crops in the same region. So this way, this will help to mitigate the climate change by reducing the atmospheric carbon dioxide. In addition to this, we also did see the nitrogen fertilizer effect on soil organic carbon sequestration. So in this graph, this one is showing the 2008 soil organic carbon stock, and these 4 bar graphs showing in 2019 with the different nitrogen rates soil organic carbon. So each sets of graphs showing both switchgrass and miscanthus with different rates of nitrogen. So in each set, first bar graph showing the switchgrass. So if you see this 2008 switchgrass and the 2019 switchgrass with the different nitrogen rates, there are significant difference in all nitrogen rates. So from 2008 to 2019, all the switchgrass field have showed the increased soil organic carbon, but among the nitrogen rates there were no significant difference. So that means the switchgrass did increase the soil organic carbon with the long-term period, but there is no significant difference among the treatments. So that way, in other words, we can say the nitrogen application didn't give any effects on the soil organic carbon sequestration in switchgrass. But in the case of miscanthus, there's a second bar graph in each set. We did see significant difference in the 80 kilogram of nitrogen application. So up to that level, there is no significant difference even with the long-term period. So with this graph, you can easily understand that this is showing the switchgrass. So among the treatments, there is no significant difference or any significant gain in the soil organic carbon in switchgrass. But if you see the miscanthus, between 80 and 20 kilogram of nitrogen, the soil organic carbon sequestration was the highest. So we can say the optimum level of nitrogen requirement for that miscanthus to sequester carbon lies between 80 to 120 kilogram of nitrogen per hectare. So to get the precise or more detail on this nitrogen rate, we need future investigation on this nitrogen rate to get the precise data on this. Then we'll move into the soil health. So we assess the soil health by counting the earthworm population in each land use system. So we didn't see any significant difference or any difference between agriculture and biomass crops, but we did see the significant difference between agriculture, biomass crops, and the woodlot. So woodlot has the highest earthworm population and followed by biomass crops and agriculture, which followed the trend of soil organic carbon. But we have to mention that we didn't have any baseline data on the earthworm in those biomass crops prior to converting to the biomass crops. So we can use this as a baseline for the future to investigate the biomass earthworm population, how it differs with the biomass crops incorporated in the marginal lands. So with that ongoing research, I'm also quantifying the soil organic carbon rate increase in biomass fields, so that I'm using 2016 soil organic carbon data, which was done by former master student Jordan Graham. So he sampled in 19 biomass crop farms in 2016. So he has set the baseline for the soil organic carbon on those farms. So then I went into those selected farms in 2020 and sampled, and I'm just analyzing the samples to get the soil organic carbon increase rate within 4 years. With that, I am also going to quantify the soil aggregate stability of the soil organic carbon by analyzing the soil carbon in each fraction of soils. So that's each aggregate size. In addition to that, I am going to assess the soil organic carbon incorporation by these biomass crops. Especially they are known as C4 worm grasses. They have the ability to fix the carbon-13 into their biomass. So by analyzing delta carbon-13 isotope in the soil, so we can guess how much carbon is incorporated in the soil within these 4 years. Still I have 2016 data, so I'm going to do that with the 2020 data. So by comparing in those 2016 and 20, I can get the data for the contribution after 4 years through the biomass crops. So having said all the details, so I kind of summarize the research. So integrating biomass, perennial biomass crop can increase the soil organic carbon present. So based on the results, converting marginal lands to perennial biomass crop production can be increased soil carbon, thereby reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. Thereby it help to mitigate the climate change. Finally, I would like to thank Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs for funding this project, and also Ontario Biomass Producers Cooperative and farmers who all welcomed me and allowed me to sample in their fields, even in the 2020 COVID crisis or the limitation, we could able to go into their fields and sample their fields. I am very thankful to them. And also I would like to thank my supervisors, Professor Naresh Devadasan and Professor Paul Warani, to guiding me through this process, and also my colleagues. They helped me a lot during the field work. Thank you all.
Can you go back to that organic carbon comparison with woodlot? Yeah, that's one. No, other one, the table. The subtraction of, yeah, that one. The interesting feature that we observed here was Ellora is our University of Guelph farm class 1 agricultural land, and Guelph is a class 3, class 4 degraded land. But if you look at the woodlot carbon, you can see that it's all southern Ontario, but undisturbed systems are still, they have not lost any carbon. So you can, but when you subtract the soil organic carbons and descanters and subtract from these, we can get potential gain over the next 10-year period. And if you multiply this by 3.67 to compare to convert to carbon dioxide, that comes into so many megagrams, tons of carbon dioxide in mobilization from the atmosphere to in that land. And then James just mentioned we have 5,000 acres in Ontario. So this is a significant contribution to the 730 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent the Canada's current emission. So this type of research will contribute even 2%, 5% towards the emission reduction to meet the 2030, 2050 goals that our government is trying to achieve. Yeah.
How confident are you that the soils get back to that woodlot soil organic carbon level?
Well, how confident? The same soil. So if we are not, woodlot is not in the loam, we are not working in the clay, neither we are working in the clay soil, and we are woodlot is the same soil type. So over a period in the forestry sector, soon after the clear cut, and we have 50 years, 100 years of data, Jake. So soon after clear cut, you see a decline in carbon because of mineralization, and when reforestation starts, you can see an increase in soil organic carbon. And so we are expecting that these biomass crops, now in the woodlots, when you have 1,500, 2,000 trees per hectare, the gain is faster. But here the inputs are relatively smaller compared to a forestry scenario. So it might take more time, but the forestry sector has shown that gain is possible. That's why the Kyoto IPCC came with afforestation policies and reforestation policies. So all these policies are expected to enhance carbon capture. So we are expecting that, but by that time I don't think I'll be leaving, but somebody can take this work forward. Yeah.
So the woodlot, what was the age of that, and comparing with the switchgrass? Is it a similar age, the woodlot, and then the switchgrass and the scanthus crop, similar age?
Good question, Mahendra. Well, Sowthini can answer.
So woodlots are 100 of years, but they were not cleared, also undisturbed soil, so they.
Yeah,
so the ages.
Yeah, age-wise, so the Guelph one, Mahendra, is arboretum. So
when you compare the carbon between woodlot and switchgrass fields, so are they similar age in terms of planted age, like 10 years? 15?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, good question. Yes. So it was Bill Dean's plots in Ellora, 2008, and we also have 2009. So it was just 1 year difference. But then we compared with the woodlot. Woodlots are similar age. The Ellora woodlot is also undisturbed, same as the arboretum in Guelph. And where the switchgrass plots is just across the Victoria Road. So within 300 meters. So that's why we comfortably took 2 woodlots of same soil type, sandy loam soil type, and Guelph and Elora, and then we had the same biomass, 11-year-old biomass crops.
So continue that. So in that previously long-term effect of growing crops, there is no significant buildup of organic carbon in switchgrass.
No, we have.
We have. Within 4 years, we couldn't see any difference, but with after 12 years, we could able to see. So these ones are after 12 to 11 years. So, but this one is 4 years difference. So we couldn't see in 4 years, but we could able to see the difference in 10 to 12 years.
So we need to keep at least 10 to 12 years of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't have data between 4 and 10, right? So we might be having in 8 years or 7 years like that.
Another feature I would like to highlight, and Sowthini, I think you can GPS coordinates.
Yeah.
So we went back after 10, 12 years to the same 2 meter accuracy. The reason being, the carbon that I sample here will be different from where James is standing. So that's why it's very important to go back to the same location that you sampled the baseline. So again, when it comes to carbon credits, we had to come up what's the minimum number of samples we need to take per hectare as a baseline, so that we could go back and take that minimum number of samples on an area base, so that the landowners can claim credits. Because now the big argument is, if you sample here and if you sample there, you're going to get 2 different numbers. And then, but in order to avoid that, we had to come up with a minimum sampling number per area per hectare. And then we had to go back after 10 years or 12 years and then do the same number of samples with GPS coordinates, and then we can compare apple to apple. Yeah.
Do you think that increase that you're talking about is enough? Is there like a meaningful, marketable soil organic carbon number here? Like, can you say, well, out of 12 years here, we start to see enough of an increase that there's a ton per hectare or whatever it is per year, there's some number there that somebody could start applying some dollars to it?
Yeah, that's what she's working now.
Yeah.
She's working on that. Yes, Emil. Yeah, that's what she's working on. The rate of
increase.
Yeah. Well,
So
you can go back to that table. Yeah. So this one.
Sorry.
Like Elora, this is the carbon, megagram per hectare. If you multiply this by 3.4, we are getting about 270, 260 tons of carbon dioxide over just 11-year period. Right? So 260 carbon dioxide ton divided by 11, that's the rate. So what are we talking about?
2.5.
Yeah, we are what $40 a ton of carbon dioxide, $30 a ton of carbon dioxide. So that means that is the amount of revenue the landowner should be getting. So this number, Elora, these numbers are very important. Now, you had a good question though, whether we can reach these numbers is yet to be seen. But the forestry sector has shown it can be achieved in the soil.
Sure, but if it takes 50 years to get there, or whatever, I guess that's the question, is what does that look like on an annual basis?
Yeah.
And is it going to get there?
So this one is over 2008, right, something?
So this is the potential gain. So we can't say how many years will take. So that's what I'm working on. So I'm comparing 2016 and 2020. So if I get the rate, the difference, then if I divide it by 4 years, I can get the rate of increase in annual basis.
Yeah.
You haven't actually presented what that number is to you.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, Emily.
So I'm just wondering, these switch grasses in the Miscanthus field that you're taking samples of, are they in operation? Like, are they normal farm that you harvest it every year and you fertilizers and it's active?
Yeah. So these 2 fields are the research plots, long-term research plots of the Gulf University, and this one is in Elora. So they are it's annually cropped and they are fertilized annually.
Okay. And so the expectation is that it will, like, the difference here is your expectation.
Expectation. So potential gain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you sample the soil, how deep?
So 0 to 30 centimeters.
30 centimeters. And you chose that number because?
Why 30 centimeters?
So those roots of these biomass crop can go up to 30 or 60, but we could able to do that because of the constraint from the sampling purpose, because they are very tough to sample after 30 centimeters.
And you filter out the roots.
Yeah. So you can see.
Also,
So,
like it's a class 3, class 4 land, like you go to GTI and try to put your auger even to 30 centimeters.
so it's very difficult.
Yes, very impossible.
We were trying to sample up to 60 centimeters. We couldn't able to get the samples.
And also most of this change we can only see in the 30 centimeters. But eventually it will also increase the carbon below that. So now international research, IPCC is asking us to go 1 meter.
Yeah,
But-
I was thinking because if you grow this for 10, 12 years, like it goes much deeper, right?
Yeah.
So you might have a better number like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and then but that gain will take long time. We talked to Paul Voroni, who said it takes a long time to go deeper. Poor Sowthini has to finish funding this for 3 years. She has to
And also these COVID restrictions, we couldn't go to the lab regularly. So yeah.
Yeah. So but that's a good question. Yeah. So but IPCC is now telling us you only have 1 meter. Yeah. But
All right, my question was, can I ask a question?
yes, sir. Go on. I'm sorry.
I didn't put my hand up. Have you also measured cropping fields nearby?
Yeah. You mean agriculture crops? Yeah.
No, I'd like to know because you have biomass crops, you have the forests. I'm wondering if you have also row crop carbon data for nearby.
Road crops?
Row crop. No, we didn't do row
Row
crop. We did
crops.
conventional agriculture crop.
Whatever, yeah.
Yes, that's what the red, like agriculture.
The agriculture one. This one. Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to know.
Gray is 2008 agriculture,
Okay,
and red is 2020
okay,
agriculture.
okay, thank you.
So this one used as a baseline.
Yeah, and again, another interesting thing we noticed, like in Ellora, agriculture there was no significant difference because already fertile land and there was no. But when it comes to unfertile land, if you do best management practices recommended by OMAPRA, like residue input and cover crops and all those stuff, that can also increase carbon significantly. Yes.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's a fascinating area, and I think you made an excellent start, but I see a long way to go to figure this out. I mean, looking in the real world, we're seeing some of our deepest and best organic soils are the prairie grassland soils, which are generally much deeper and much more organic than even the woodlands. But the woodlands are very organic in a thinner layer. And just how we get to where we're duplicating something that the prairie did over millions of years and sequestering that carbon in the kind of way that they did still is a bit elusive here, but I think you're getting us started on that pathway forward, and that's great to see. But you know, we'd sure like to do our part, and we think Perennial will be part of it. But I'm just, you know, we got the example in the real world, but we can't quite explain it yet. How it works and they give you your consistent year-over-year number, you know, and compared to woodlots, you know, like there's a lot of research out there on how much woodlots are actually sequestering, and it doesn't look like there's more above ground than below ground with woodlots.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas we think we're getting more below ground with the biomass crop, even though we're harvesting it, and just quite frankly, almost mind-boggling how to duplicate nature.
Yeah.
But those are a great start here, and you know, we can only do it one step at a time. So thank you for that.
Thanks, James. James, you did a very good summary of all but we presented. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an excellent summary. Yeah.
I was thinking as well, if it's a very thin layer, it's easy to burn it off.
Yeah.
Versus if it's very root deep, it may not. Like in a forest fire, boom, boom, it's re-released. Versus it's long. Somebody yesterday told me that Joel Salatin, with this pasturing, very intensive regenerative work, that they're finding their fence posts, they have to now reinstall them because the land's actually grown higher. Again, whether it's just more fluff and air mixed in there or whatnot, it's a different thing to maybe look at. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. If you go to the earthworm one, I was curious about if we look at our row cropping systems versus our miscanthus things, what's the monoculture mix in there of other weeds, other species in there, and whether or not the earthworms are not having the variability that's within our woodlands. Again, just the whole diversity that would be woodlands compared to. So in our say our biomass crops versus field crop, is our weed mix, is it more monocrop than our egg rows or less or very similar? I don't know.
So probably switchgrass has more diversity in it than miscanthus. Miscanthus, Norm, you might be able to help me here, but when you get it established solid, it tends to either be miscanthus or a patch of something else.
So I'm wondering what the earthworms are eating in that field versus in our row cropping fields versus in our wood. It's smorgasbord.
Absolutely, and there can even be, an adaptation time too, I'm sure, for, the right variation of earthworms, if you like. And even the agriculture, if I could just go back 1 second to that, you're talking a good agricultural program, if we put 3 years of beans out there, the evidence that I've seen is that we are decreasing soil carbon. And so there's lots and lots of factors, but I will be quiet now.
And earthworms are very interesting creatures. When we had tree-based intercropping, so we had 3 rows, 15 meters apart, and then we had agriculture crops, corn, bean, wheat rotation. So we published a paper also. So we did some earthworm numbering. So when we go in the spring, and if you sample earthworms from the tree row into the alleys, the numbers are almost the same. Then when you go back in July, and if you do the sampling, you get hell of a lot of earthworms right below the tree row, under the canopy, and you get very less in the field. So they sense the soil temperature, and then slowly they migrate to the shaded, cooler area. So it was amazing to see that migration pattern of the earthworm, and what they're doing is they're aerating the soil while doing that, which is also reducing the denitrification aspect, because there's more soil aeration there. The earthworms are creating more soil air and pores. So it was very interesting thing to see, and I think we published that paper in 1995 about the earthworm movements in agroforestry.
That's the Serengeti and all the wild wildebeest and everything migrating through pasture land and then migrating back through.
Yeah. They're very intelligent,
Tillage has a huge impact too, right? If there's no till or...
Yeah, and I think in our research field we did not zero till minimum till like 2 inches. So it was not that much affecting the earthworms. Yeah. Thank you, Sowthini. So she visited all these fields.
Thank you so much.